European leaders are pledging to pitch in more to help Ukraine.
They held an emergency meeting after the White House paused military aid to Ukraine this week. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent Rachel Knapp is joining us live tonight. Rachel, question for you. Are world leaders worried about Ukraine's future without help from the U.S.?
Good evening, Mike and Eva. So that is definitely a concern among world leaders, is that what could happen if the U.S. fully steps aside. Well, for the most part, from what I've heard today, is that European leaders are saying that they are confident they will be able to shore up enough support for Ukraine. But the question is, how sustainable will that support be? Because, of course, Mike and Eva, the U.S. has been the biggest partner in helping Ukraine, and world leaders are hoping that the U.S. will continue engaging with Ukraine. In last week's fiery Oval Office showdown between President Trump and President Zelensky resulted in Zelensky getting asked to leave the White House.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now.
The president said Zelensky, who was there to sign a minerals agreement with the U.S., could return if Ukraine is open to peace negotiations with Russia. Since then, the administration has paused military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine.
And it's a pause for a review.
The move has received some support from Trump's Republican allies.
The president has authority to do that, to act as the commander-in-chief, to use the strategy that he and his team believe is best fit for that.
There are reports that the pause for U.S. aid to Ukraine could hurt Ukraine. For example, losing advanced weapons, air defense systems, and a potential high number of Ukrainian casualties. On Thursday, European leaders held emergency talks to look at new ways to shore up their own security and support that Ukraine will still be protected. Leaders say Washington's new attitude towards Ukraine poses an entirely new challenge for them, and Europe must take up this challenge.
This is something that we have been asking for a long time, that the European Union, that Europe is capable of standing up on its own 2 feet.
Zelensky is trying to mend the relationship, sending the president a letter. Most recently, Zelensky says progress is being made between the U.S. and Ukraine.
Today, Ukrainian and American teams began working on an upcoming meeting. Andrew Yermak and Mike Waltz held talks, and we're seeing
Of course, Mike and Eva, there is some concern among European leaders about now that or at least looking back at Friday's Oval Office meeting, with the tensions between the U.S. and Ukraine, that how does that play into their own security over in Europe? Well, recently, France's President Emmanuel Macron suggested that they should potentially start talking about using France's nuclear weapons as a deterrent against threats from Russia. Of course, Moscow is not liking those talks or suggestions, I should say. But as for the future of U.S. and Ukraine relations, there are talks that there will be a meeting between our two countries as soon as next week in Saudi Arabia.